if you want to ask comments, because we're all NHS together, just put them in the chat. We've got everybody here one way or another, so I'm sure somebody will have an attempt to answer any questions you've got as we go along. If we get time at the end, there's a lot to cover, then I'll take verbal questions at the end. If you wouldn't mind muting your microphones, just in case somebody interrupts you and you end up talking to us all, that'd be good. So I'll kick this off with starting with where we last were, and then we will transition to why we're not in the same place, and then the good news that's come out of that process, and then the state of play. So there's quite a lot to cover today. So the good news is we have an NHSE approved way forward. So that is the really good news, because we've had a few moments along the way. So I'll give you an update on what's happened in these last few months. I'll do a very short 2 or so slide recap of geothermal, just for anybody who's new to us. I'll do a very quick recap of the financial modeling, and you'll see why that might be important to you. And then we'll go into the geothermal procurement process, which is the main event. And we will take questions as we go in the chat or later on, as if we got that time at the end. But please feel free to chuck them in the chat as we go along. So just to remind you, we're talking about geothermal energy, not ground source heat pumps, which is the right-hand side of this diagram. There's sort of first two ways of getting geothermal: your ground source heat pumps, these the loops in the ground, or possibly coal workings. Though I suppose what we've done would cover somebody who wanted to work with coal workings. So maybe we could claim to help you with that. But we are certainly looking at aquifer solutions, depleted hydrocarbon wells, and sedimentary rock, such as several of you got down in the south of England. So we talk about those geothermal technologies. We have a few hospitals have the potential to get into radiothermal granites and get very high temperatures. That's mostly George, your trust down south, Truro, Plymouth, that sort of neck of the woods. You guys have all got a chance to do that. The rest of us have either got very little chance, and therefore we're looking at the depleted hydrogen wells or some other technology, or we're into the hot sedimentary aquifers where we're looking at temperatures 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 degrees, in that range. So that's what geothermal will do and can do for you. And then just a quick flash up of the depleted wells, or the sealed geothermal wells, where you effectively push a tube into the ground and then circulate water down the middle of the tube and then back out the outside the tube, a coaxial tube, so that you can take heat. And that's called therapy, and that works. You don't need an aquifer, so it's a little easier to do, but it has its own little series of problems. So we're covering all the routes to geothermal in this talk, and all the trusts who want to go this way. And there is quite a lot of potential, because we put all the biggest trusts through the British Geological Survey database, and these little circles with the little wavy lines coming off, including some in Northern Ireland, and actually a couple in Ireland, have potential for doing geothermal heat of one sort or another. So we've got a nice northeast cluster, we've got a nice northwest cluster, some going over towards Huddersfield and more the north swing around Harrogate and Leeds. We've got down the south coast quite a lot, and then we have a scattering down the side of the country. So there are about 113 trusts who could benefit from geothermal heat, and it means going through a process to find out which works for you. And I've highlighted one case, Wythenshawe Hospital, which is one of the 5 pilot trusts who did it. Wythenshawe are well into the route to geothermal for their site, and in fact in March we're expecting them to do seismic studies, which is a very interesting process, because they effectively do a ground version of an ultrasound. So if you do an ultrasound to see whether you're pregnant or not, they're doing the ground version of an ultrasound to work out just what they need to aim for under Wythenshawe. And oddly enough, it's not a nice white little clean machine. that they push in through a set of gel, and it's very cold. It's a bloody great big truck with a thing on it that vibrates. It is a very interesting thing to watch. So we'll issue an invite as soon as we've got some dates, and anybody who's keen enough to want to go and see what a seismic survey looks like will have the opportunity to go and look at it. But unfortunately, the actual day is a little bit fluid, so you'll have to work with me if you want to go and see it. We already did one at Salisbury Trust. Simon and his team hosted us, and we went to see the trucks do it there. So some of you will have seen it in Sunderland. Now, you're not going to do a geothermal project unless you're pretty sure, and a geothermal procurement, unless you're pretty sure that geothermal is going to make sense to you, which is why the British Geological Survey result is kind of helpful. But generally, there are four ways to get a hospital to net zero. You can fiddle around, but basically there are four ways. One is to take heat from the earth. Another one is to take heat from hydrogen, and the government's investing an awful lot of money in hydrogen. So it's hydrogen, or in Ireland, biomethane gas, and there's a bit of biomethane creeping into England as well, so that's another way. District heating that meets the Energy Act requirements will have to get to net zero, and that's a way to get to net zero, is to take a ride on somebody else's system, or to do heat pumps, which is currently the NHS England basic model that they've assumed that trusts will get to net zero at the moment by heat pumps. So we use that as our do minimum scheme. And I think NHS England are hoping that all the work that's going on with that they're doing and everybody's doing about finance will help you all get nice big fat grants to do that. Okay, word electrification, yes, electrification is a wonderful word. So you obviously know some of the issues with heat pumps. So if somebody on Becca, if you want to answer any technical queries like that, but electrification is an issue, and it is a route. And I see the government's now going to put an underwater cable from Scotland down to England, where the Russian trawlers can get hold of it, to help us get more electricity down south. So anyway, there are four routes to net zero. Sorry to go off on a tangent. And the one we're talking about today is geothermal. You aren't going to do it unless you can persuade your board it's a good idea. And the way to persuade them to do it's a good idea is to do a SOC. And for a SOC, you want a financial model that contrasts the different way to net zero. And if you want a financial model, well, you might have one if you went on last year's road shows, or if you're coming on this year's road shows and you ask Vanessa, she'll speak to Becca, and Becca will do you a financial model. And here is the outcome for a financial model. It's a bit fatty because I've just cut and pasted bits of spreadsheet into a sheet. So here's an exemplar site. I can't remember what site it is. It's not a very big hospital because it only consumes 15 million units of heat a year. So it's a smallish hospital. And they've got, like everybody else, 4 routes to net zero. They could go geothermal. And for some reason, you can't see the net present value at the bottom of that because my slide is running off behind something. I don't know whether you can see it, but at the bottom of the page you might or might not be able to see the NPV figure, but for geothermal it's in fact negative. So if this trust were to do a geothermal procurement, they might get a nice smart carbon graph like the one shown above the NPV value, the nice blue curve if they went on, started doing it straight away. But the NPV is negative. And that means you're going to your finance director and saying, I'm going to get you to net zero, but you need to find me a lot of money. So that is going to go down like a lead balloon. But the same trust, if they could find a way to get hydrogen and keep CHP and include a bit of solar PV, they actually get quite a positive NPV. And I can't remember what it is, but it's nicely positive. And at the time they implement it, so whenever they implement it, and it certainly won't be immediately, then the curve would go down like that blue curve goes. And it's a very nice way of getting to net zero if you're lucky enough to be able to get a hydrogen NPV solution. And for instance, Countess of Chester are on the call and are actually leading the procurement work we're doing now that Simon and I have had to admit that that we have issues being able to do it the way we were planning to do it, then hydrogen is an option. But the same hospital, and it isn't counted at Chester, could use a district heating scheme. And this time you can see the NPV, it's plus 3 million. So if you took it to your director of finances, sorry, you can't do that hydrogen one option because it's not going to work for us. We can do you this nice, shiny district heating scheme in much the way Becker's modeled for us here. And it's got a positive NPV. So effectively, over the life of the contract, you get the installation, you get your graph to net zero, and you get a revenue saving that adds up over the 15 years to £3.2 million, assuming that our modelling is what comes out of the procurement and the work you do, but that's how it is. Or you could do heat pumps. That's the last option here. And heat pumps, unfortunately, somebody said electrification. I saw Becca answer Dan, but it does cost you a lot of money. And in fact, it's a minus £10 million. So you would have to find somebody. If Salix coughed up £10.2 million, then that scheme would wash its face, because we could put that into the capital cost to the scheme. The Salix would cross out the 10 million and become a viable option for you. But if you don't get the Salix, or you don't get 10.2 million's worth, it doesn't work for you. That's why you need the financial models. The financial models, I'll let you guys carry on with your chats and your questions. The financial models come out of the roadshow work that NH Power are doing, and that Becca, who's on the call, is helping with. We've got 4 roadshows this year. I haven't put ones in the Midlands or Peterborough because they weren't well attended. And all these things involve people going out of their way to do them. So we got one on January the 23rd, in about 10 days' time. One in Blackburn, which is full, so I haven't put it on the slide. One in Taunton for the Southwest Trust. One in Durham for the Northeast Trust. And one in March for the Northwest Trust. If somebody can get up a decent group of interested people in the Midlands or Peterborough Way or somewhere else, then I'll look to see whether I can persuade people to come and talk to them. Because at each of those, I persuaded external people who know what they're doing and understand their systems to come and talk to you. And in London, they haven't really got an option of geothermal in London. So we've got somebody coming to talk about district heating, somebody to talk about heat pumps, which have to be an option for London, and some talk about district energy, how you get energy across the district heating system, how you find green energy, and just generally how you approach the whole problem. So I've tried to make the January 23rd one quite London-centric, but if you're a geothermal trust and you're used to geothermal procurement, there's not a lot for you there. We've got the Taunton one, where we're inviting Eden to produce the deep geothermal stuff. So you might want to get over there. We also will do another visit to Eden to see their project, see their system later in the year. We will include heat pump usage in that one again. So that's another one with heat pumps in it. And then I've persuaded, yes, George, it'd be lovely to see you there. I've tried to persuade the Exeter project, who are putting in a big district heating scheme, picking up both the Wanford and Heavy Tree sites, hospital sites, into it. So I've asked them to pitch up and do us a talk about their scheme and tell us about how you connect to it and all the stuff you need to do. So I'm hoping Taunton's going to be very interesting, even for those that have perhaps done the Eden visit or perhaps heard Eden speak before. You will get other things there that are good. We go up northeast to Durham, who's got to have a riches in Durham. If you live in Durham or northeast, you've got a riches of things, because you've got the opportunity for deep geothermal. So I'm inviting Seraphy to speak, not the deep aquifer people, but Seraphy, you have a test site that we can all go and see up in the northeast, near Flamingo Land, if you've got children who are interested in those kind of things. We're going to do district heating because there's district heating potential, and we've got hydrogen northeast for that, because they have a very real chance of hydrogen. And then the last one we've got scheduled, and this is March in Royal Liverpool, district heating. Again, they've got the HyNet hydrogen opportunity. They've got a geothermal opportunity. So those are the road shows. If you're coming to those or want to come to any of those, and you ask Vanessa or ask Becca, both on the call, they will make sure you get an invite, and they'll make sure you get a model if you haven't already got one. And you can't really do a geothermal procurement or any kind of a procurement in the net zero space unless you've done some kind of modeling to show your trust. Now, I have had to make some compromises to get you a viable geothermal procurement. And you may like them or you may not like them, but I went out. NH Power, as you understand, is me, an old man, and all the people I can get together. And we've looked for good quality support to help us do it. Simon, you stood shoulder to shoulder with me on that to try and find your procurement route. Simon got us NHS England on a meeting. We had a good call with them discussing how things would work and all the rest of it. I tried to find you resources and a team, but the bad news is I just couldn't get you a solution that would satisfy everybody, that would be free to get on with till you reach the point of knowing you've definitely got a scheme. But I haven't got the team myself to give you the individual project support. IHEM have stood next to us, supporting us and doing the CPD for our roadshows and everything else, but they are a professional body, not a project team. And Simon has a director, and whilst he could do us procurement with lots in it for individual hospitals, which is what we plan to do, it's under NHS England's questioning, it proved not to be the way we could do it. So I had a lucky break. You may consider a lucky break, or you might not. But Countess of Chester suggested that, seeing they were reprocuring the framework they do with the staff, that they include geothermal energy in there as well. And the SEP supported that approach, so that's the compromise. We've got in with them, and there we are. And if you're disappointed with that, I apologise, but it's got you free support with resources, with a process that we can do it, with access to the funding work that's going on in the contract. And I'll explain those to you, and hopefully you'll cheer up a bit about it as we go along. So I'd like to hand over to Countess of Chester now, just to explain to you where they're at, because you may not know them. So Samantha, do you want to do that bit? Just say next slide when you want me to push the button.
Thanks, Clive. Hi everyone, I'm Samantha Brealey. I'm a Senior Commercial Procurement Specialist here at the Countess of Chester within the Commercial Procurement Services team. If you want to head to the first slide, Clive, and I'll go through that one. So the team here was established in 2014 and we're a part of the Countess of Chester Hospital, but we're like a separate branch to the procurement team here. We're a commercial team. So we let frameworks that can be used nationally, and we're one of the 20 NHS England accredited framework hosts. So the frameworks we let cover a wide range of categories across the NHS and the wider public sector. Next slide. Like I said, they can be used nationally and they can be used by any public sector body across health, law enforcement, education and local authorities. So we offer a unique access point for goods and services which offer innovation and savings to the NHS and the wider public sector. Our agreements are free to use for our customers. So any customer that's looking to use them doesn't have to pay any fees to access them. And what we do when requested, we'll provide briefing packs to the customers that provide step-by-step guides on how to access and utilize the frameworks. Also, any documents that you'd need to complete a process using the framework as well. So we've got currently 45 live frameworks and DPSs that are all successful at the minute. And from these successful frameworks and DPSs, we generate a dedicated income for the Countess of Chester Hospital. So we're doing quite well with those at the minute. Next slide. So for a bit of background on this one, we've been working in partnership with CEF since 2015 when we established the first framework agreement for carbon and energy infrastructure upgrade services. Then the agreement was renewed in 2017 and then again in 2022. So we're now come to the point where we're looking to renew again in 2025 under the new Procurement Act. So we're looking to do this as soon as possible. So the framework seeks to build upon what we've currently got in place, and like Clive will go through, introducing new lots to the framework to be used across public sector. Thanks, Clive.
Okay, so this slide is a slide from the actual pre-engagement pack that we're going through with the market. So Counters of Chester issued a pre-engagement to the marketplace. It's been very well received. There's an awful lot of interest in it, even international interest, and that's underway. There's been one set of presentations to interested bidders on the 8th. There's another one tomorrow, and then there's the last one on the 28th of January. And anybody, be they bidder or any of yourselves, can comment on the process, what we're trying to do and what you think should be there or shouldn't be there up until the end of the month. Obviously, the way we're treating bidders is very procurement-y, so it's all at arm's length, but you're a trust and you work with us, so there's no reason why you shouldn't let me know or Vanessa know or even let Samantha know any thoughts you had, and can be built into the process if they make sense. Okay, so why a framework, why the Carbon Energy Fund, and why lots? I think Counters of Chester have justified themselves, so they're there. So the previous geothermal procurement that we did for the exemplar sites was for 5 named trusts, and each one was their own lot. This has worked well as a learning exercise. 3 of them have progressed well. Now Preston do know where their new site's going to go. They're probably going to come alive again. And Southampton, who are a wonderful opportunity, have just about spent their Salix money. So it looks like they're going to come alive well. So we've learned an awful lot, including doing a geothermal procurement while you're trying to spend 30 million of Salix at Southampton isn't a bad idea, but we've learned a lot. But it's become clear that the individual way doesn't cover everything we need to do in the hospital. So, for instance, we do a geothermal procurement, and that's going to get you geothermal energy, but the most efficient way to get the energy is to have a return temperature of, say, 60 degrees, which is what we're finding at Truro. Then you might be stuck if you can't get your stuff down that night. So you might say, well, I've got to do that, but I also need help getting my hospital down to 60 degrees. So the lot by lot process would have changed to be a procurement by procurement approach. And we have found this out when we spoke to NHS England, because they just asked us a bunch of questions and they quickly unpicked some of the stuff we were doing because of our own learning. So if we did them individually, they might end up each having to be bespoke, and we would have had to go to NHSE on each of them, and it would have driven Simon and myself nuts because we're just not resourced to do a lot of single procurements like that for free for the NHS and give you the quality support you need. So it just doesn't give you the mix. I have asked left, right, and centre. I've even tried to take advantage of the change of government and stuff to try and find support for doing these. Either money support to allow us to find resources to do it, or people who are prepared to do it as part of their work. And only Counters of Chester and the CEF were prepared to do it for free. And it was, in fact, the Counters of Chester's idea to do this. I'd like to say to you that I thought of it, but I didn't. It was Andrew at the Counters of Chester came up with the idea. But the nice thing is the CEF do not ask for a fee, and Counters of Chester do not ask a fee. So you can embark upon this road without having to commit valuable resources. You do need to know you want to do it. You do need to procure always in good faith, but you don't need to cross the hurdle of fees as the first object to get this done. And it's got a lot of positives because it will save you time, cost, and approvals as we go along. It means we can use the standard contract, which I'll talk about in a minute. We don't have to pay fees. We're using standard documentation, and the membership route way of working fits nicely with the teamwork approach that the NHS would like us to use. So why does the opportunity exist? Well, it exists now because Counters of Chester are going out to procure the framework anyway. It's been excessively, not excessively, it's the wrong word, but it's been incredibly successful to the point where it used up the capital on the original procurement. It had to be extended, and that extension will run out in September. So they've got to procure the scheme. Okay, and NHSE have approved Counters of Chester as an approved procurement organisation. They approved us going forward with the framework. There is still a step with Cabinet Office because that's the way it works, but that should happen and that will occur later on. The other thing is the new procurement regs come into force in February. They've been delayed once. They came into force, supposed to come into force in October last year, and they didn't. They got delayed to February. So I'm sitting here with crossed fingers that they go forward in February, because if they don't, we're going to end up with more delays. So being able to work with the counties of Chester and Seth gives us access to the NHS standard contract. It does allow us to cover the other routes to net zero, which I touched upon in an earlier slide. And it's allowed us to access the cross-parliamentary committee being led by Dr. Mullen, who's working hard with DESNES and all kinds of good people on how to fund projects. So we don't think Salix is going to pay for everything, and we certainly don't think they're going to pay for everybody to have heat pumps. And they certainly aren't going to pay for your revenue costs if you do go that way. So we've got to find funding. And the new framework of lots much more flexible, allows a larger number, allows longer time periods, and various other things. So how are we engaging? Well, it's called pre-engagement. The pre-engagement notice has gone out. If bidders want to take part, and you can jot that email address down if you want to, info@countersofchester-cps.co.uk. They have to ask to pre-engage through that email address. They'll get registered. They'll get sent an invite by Counters of Chester. They'll be asked for their feedback in writing. We're doing presentations, but we're not keen on them doing comments in the Teams talk. We're very keen you are, so keep typing your questions. And we've got to close the pre-engagement on the 21st of the 1st, but we'll take responses up to the end of the month. The idea is to go to market on or around the 3rd of March. That's all subject to the government not wussing out on the procurement regs at the end of February, because we're going under the new regs. I'll explain why in a second. And we're planning to have the new lots available for use in June. Now you're saying, I expected last June, and now it's next June. But I'm telling you, this has been a hard journey, and we will learn a lot, and a lot's got to still happen between now and June. So I apologize. It's taken a while, and it hasn't happened yet. But we have a route forward that's now been through the mill, and it's everybody so far is happy with it. So lots. So what Counters of Chester were doing was they were re-procuring lot 1 anyway, the standard framework that they've worked with since 2014. So they were doing that anyway, and it was Andrew's idea that we could do the others as lots. So he said, why not pick up the others? We'll pick up geothermal, what do we call green district heating, because there's plenty of ungreen district heating, and hydrogen or biogas, because biogas is still around and is becoming an option. And those will be done as lots, so it'll work as effectively as 4 frameworks. I'll explain to you how it might work in a minute. And this is the opportunity to join with them now and do it with them now. It kept their costs down, which allowed them to do it for us now, and allowed us access to things. Can we switch our CFP to certified biogas? It could take a mix. You certainly can, but that's probably another discussion, not quite for now. Becca might tell you, if she knows about it, she might be able to tell you about one. I think Peterborough are trying to do that. Anyway, I might be wrong, but I think Peterborough are looking to do that. So yes, an option. So how it might work for you, I put hospital X because we're not yet certain who wants to do this. But anyway, any hospital wants to seek a partner for geothermal. You can't, well, it'd be unwise to try and procure a geothermal system because nobody knows what the hell's down there. So really you need a partner who's going to do the grunt work of investigating, proving the viability, and then in due course implementing a geothermal solution. So you'd be seeking a partner. If it's deep geothermal, it's lot 2. If it's shallow and it's on your site, then you might be better looking at lot 1, the established framework there. But if it's deep geothermal and possibly even mine water, you might want to use lot 2. All the framework lot 2 bidders will be invited. And because the bidders are entering the market all the time, geothermal is achieving liftoff. We're expecting new bidders to come to the marketplace, and we're possibly expecting people who do parts of technology, say drillers, to work with with piping people. You know, we're expecting this to grow and change, and that's why we needed the new procurement regulations. But you'll invite them to present to you. They'll present proposals and a way forward to you and the methodology that they propose to use, because we aren't being too specific about the methodology for implementing them. I'll explain to you in a while. The idea is you choose a partner and the way you're going to work together to investigate and hopefully implement the net zero route you've chosen on the lot 2. I'll put in brackets 3, 4, because there's no reason why you can't use the hydrogen part of the framework or the district heating part of the framework, or even use 2 of them together. Though I would advise you to don't bite off more than you can chew. But bidders could be on multiple lots. So, for instance, Scottish and Southern, just to pick a number out the blue, they do on-site schemes, and I'm sure we'll put in for the lot 1, but they also do district heating schemes, so they'll put in for whatever it is, lots 3. Okay, so you might find bidders are on different lots, and that'll be great because we want them there. Okay, so this route we've chosen gives us access to the standardized NHS contract. It's a proven performance contract based on NHS standard form and designed for energy schemes. The contract looks for guaranteed performance. And if you're looking at lot 1, it's looking for self-funded solutions by grants and guaranteed savings. And we certainly would look to bring both grants and performance into these geothermal lots. And of course, it's standard NHS boilerplate. It includes risk transfer, contract mechanisms, delivery, termination, if you ever have to, payment mechanisms, monitoring, measurement, dispute resolution, indemnities, all that kind of boring stuff. And that contract is being adapted to work on the route to net zero, which is what that graph on the right is doing. So if you're going to contract for lots 2 to 4, then the contract you might finally sign may not be the full standard set contract, but it will use a lot of it. And I'll touch upon that in a second. This is one of the things we're working out. But we're looking for proven performance. It's a proven performance contract, and I've gone through that, the guaranteed savings. But with lots 2 to 4, it is very difficult even for hydrogen to be certain exactly what the solution is going to be for you when you set off on this. So I see there's a very lively chat here. Just keep at it, guys. Keep putting it there. I'll look to extract the chat and the answers and possibly flesh them out and circulate them. So there we are. But for lots 2 to 4, it's difficult to be absolutely certain what's down there, certainly geothermal. You've got to, for geothermal to work, you need the right ground conditions, you need access largely to aquifers, and you've got to be able to hit those when you drill them. So, and think even district energy, hydrogen, biomethane are subject to what I've called wider influences, be that subsidization for hydrogen by the hydrogen business model, be it subsidization for biomethane by something very similar, be it the Energy Act and district heating and the stakeholders involved in that. Lots 2 to 4 are going to have to be more flexible than the old bid it, guarantee performance of it, do it, which is what lot 1 does. So lots 2 to 4 will instead pass through a number of gateways. And if each gateway needs to be successful, because if you don't pass that gateway, we might end the procurement or we might fundamentally change the project. I'm aware time's passing, so I'm going to carry on galloping through this while you guys handle the chat. So here's an example. The trust wants to choose a partner to work with on a lot 2 geothermal, and you probably say about time. So you shortlist the geothermal providers in much the way you would always have done it with existing NHS frameworks. So bidders will produce a viability as best they can do it. They'll produce their experience, they'll produce their own partnering approaches and methodologies to you. You will score those in a formal scoring exercise, and you'll choose the partner for you. Now, the partner you might choose might have put forward something like this table I put down here. Now, I'm sucked it out of my head. It's not from any live project. But they might say to you, look, we've got a 5-stage project with a couple of approval stages in it. And stage 1 is a viability, which we need to spend 60K on. Stage 2 will follow stage 1 if everybody's happy, and that costs 300k. Stage 4 is a test hole. Some people want a test hole that may cost £1 million. Stage 4 is permitting and design. That might cost 700k. And if we do all that and everything's still good, then we're looking at approving a draft energy service contract, i.e. if you've got that far, you will say to your partner, look, I'm prepared to buy energy from you on the basis we've been discussing all along, within the price cap and collar that we've been discussing all along, and provided you produce the heat, we'll take it from you. In which case they'll be safe to go to stage 5, drilling, construction and proving. Maybe that'll cost 15 million. This is not cheap. And then because you've already agreement and they proved it and it's all working, then you'll go into an energy services agreement for N years. What's N? Well, N is likely to be the life of the well. So that would be the process they outlined to you, and you'll take back to your board and you'll sit down there and say, right, we're working with bidder 3 out of the list, bidder 3, this is their plan, this is how it will work. We want to work with them. So what about these stages and what about what happens? So at the end of each stage, the idea is you sit down with your partner and you discuss the progress made in that stage and you make a decision together. So this simple slide tries to say what comes back at the report and what's the decision you can make from that. So the first one is decision always is there's no viable project. Sorry, we've done a lot of work. We've spent a lot of money. Maybe you spent 60,000. Maybe you've spent 360,000. Maybe you've spent 1 million something. Maybe you've spent more. But at whatever stage you happen to be at, you come to the conclusion there's no viable project. So we sit down and we're all very sorry we ever did this thing and wish we'd done something else. And we either terminate and go our separate ways, or we use the information we've got to reformulate the project into a way we can make viable. So we reviable it, if that's an expression. That would be an outcome. Or, much more hopefully, we've got a viable project. The bidder is gung-ho and happy to do it. They're prepared to proceed on the basis we've discussed, and prepared to help deal with the capital and energy and the cap and the collar and the cost, the price and stuff. They say to the trust, I really want to do this, and we'll go and seek grants and all this other good stuff, but I really want to do it. Over to you, trust. And you say, you look at the proposal and you listen to the discussion and you say, well, provided you cover the risks and you stick to the costs and we can deal with the costs up to now, and we're all happy with it, then the trust could agree the way forward, in which case we proceed. Or the trust could say, no, we don't want to proceed, I don't agree, and then the cost will be dealt with on the basis of which you agreed you would do it before you spent the money. And that could be that the trust divvies up the money, or it could be you do something else. So that's where you're at for those decisions. We'll do that for each gateway. We'll come back and run that decision again. And if things are goer, we do the next gateway. And if things are not a goer, the scheme gets terminated or reformulated. And largely, we're looking for that to be at minimal or limited cost to the trust. But if you just decide, well, we've reached stage 4, don't want to do it anymore, we're going to heat the hospital with candles because they'll give us last have a nice smell of incense, and candles are cheap. Well, if you've walked away for no good reason, and that certainly would be no good reason, then you must bear some of the costs. So you do expect that you will be bearing some of the costs under that scenario because you walked away for no good reason. When we reach the stage where the project becomes bankable, and bankable means a bank is prepared to step in and put money, that's what bankable means. And then we'll look to do that and we'll unwind the risk positions. What that means is we'll give people back the money they've spent so that they're okay. And the parties can look forward to enter into an energy service agreement based on a price performance, i.e. you produce me the well at an energy at the price I want, it all works, then I'll enter into contract with you. When the installation is complete and proven, the energy service agreement starts, and it will be a long-term agreement. Now, if you go and ask the NHS, can you do long-term energy agreements? Well, there are two ways of doing it. One is you go and purchase energy through Crown Commercial Services and in the way you've always done it, and that's the way of doing it. That's not going to work for geothermal because geothermal is not in a form yet that Crown Commercial Services can procure it. So the only other way to do it is through an energy services agreement directly with the company, which means it's got to comply with the guidance on long-term energy services agreement, which does exist, thank goodness, and that's what we'll do. But I'm old-fashioned, so we've built into our process, like we did for the pilot, 7 yearly reviews, just to make sure that we stay in step with the marketplace and the guidance and everything else. So there will be 7 yearly reviews. You could agree to have 5 yearly reviews or 3 yearly reviews, but at the moment, I think there's 7 yearly reviews. And if you do a geothermal one, there's no reason why it couldn't be a 40 or 50 year agreement, because if the contractor is prepared to guarantee the well for that period of time, that's a good thing. But if you did hydrogen, for instance, you probably only want to do 15 years because the hydrogen business model is 15 years. So it's horses for courses. I'm watching the time. So the intention, I'm nearly there. The intention is to reopen and extend the framework as we go along. I already went through that. The new procurement regs allow us to do up to 8 years, and it does allow us to open the framework to people as we go along. So I can see lots of chats being going on. And I'm going to have a look at them in a minute and see whether I can quickly say anything about some of the questions. But now is a good time to tell us what's on your heart about this, because if you say, well, this is all taking too bloody long, I can't wait till June, I'm not going to take part, well, that would be sad, but it might reflect the situation you're in. But more constructively, you might be able to tell us how to make this thing work better for you and better for bidders. So it'd be a good time to do it. So we'll take questions. I'm not a whiz at these things, so I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to look at the chat and see whether any of these we can do quickly. So I see Beverly's very busy. Right, I'm just choosing some from the top because it's 44 minutes. I've booked you for 45 minutes. Obviously, I haven't got time to do this in great detail. So assuming this can be linked with Salix funding, or is it a separate pound per kilowatt basis? So it's up to you a bit, Xavier, but we have put some schemes forward already for Salix money on the basis that they're going to take part in this process. So it can work with them. And I think the ones that have gone forward have used the modelling that Becca's done to come up with, and their partners have done, to come up with a pounds per kilowatt hour that they bid. Okay, I can see stuff's going on there. I won't say too much about that. Let's look down here. It's about links and windows. This, because it's a framework and because it run for 8 years, and if you can't manage it this year, there's no real reason why you couldn't manage it later and join up with PSDS 5. We'll start the work now and pick it up as you go along. That's part of it. We have Hindu and have started looking at feasibility plus a BGS report. Can we skip a step? Anything we've got? Of course you can. Of course you can. You can skip as many steps as meet the procurement regs, allow you to get that thing started. Certainly because you've done study and you've got Hindu, bidders are going to be falling over themselves because you've got a way of dealing with risk in there. Slides will be available after the workshop. Hydrogen routes not available yet. I'm just looking at the questions here. Hydrogen may be closer than you think. I can't picture where you are, Beverly, but it may be more advanced than you think. Join one of our sessions on that. Can I have a copy of the slides? Yes. Pre-market engagement? Yes. Samantha's answered that. Is the pre-engagement for suppliers or trust? It really is for, it's procurement, so it's for the bidders. But there's nothing, we have the chance to change the framework now. You know, the fact we're pre-engaging and we've said X in the pre-engagement doesn't mean we don't change it because somebody has made a valid case. Clive says likely you'll be able to run on hydrogen, potentially modification of burners. Right, okay, yeah. We have this an option. I'm trying to run over CHP, that's really good. Can you run biogas? Yeah, I think Peterborough are planning to do it. Anyway, I'll leave that question. I see there have been some answers. Taunton's straight down the motorway in the M5, yes. Please come to Taunton. You'll have a really good presentation there. You'll meet Gus from Geothermal. Please come. I feel a good opportunity, specifics about being proposed, blue hydrogen, green hydrogen, grey. I wouldn't down get wound up about hydrogen. Today's geothermal. The government has published a standard for hydrogen. And the way they've greened the grid, the electrical grid, remember 10 years ago, we'd never believed it was as green as it is now, that it could get green. In the same way, they're going to squeeze the throat of the hydrogen market and make that green. So we are covered if we use their specified hydrogen and we follow their route. So I wouldn't be too worried. Heat pumps, yeah, electrification, all right. I actually have managed to start with them yes and work back. Okay. Right, okay. I see a link to the slides. It's been put up there. The slides aren't there yet, obviously, because we've already just presented them and I had a meltdown earlier today. So I'll put them on there. I will actually put the video of today's thing there as well. So the video will present there. So if you've got a colleague who wants to attend and couldn't attend, because at the moment I haven't scheduled another talk like this. I could do, and we might consider one. Perhaps May would be a good time. But anyway, I haven't scheduled one at the moment. The other one is the events page on the NH Power website needs updating with the new road shows and some of the events on it. So don't hold me to it too much. I've used up more than my 45 minutes. If you guys need to run, then please run. If you'd like to answer some questions, I think we'll take some questions. Oh, right, Stuart's raised one that I missed. Stuart, do you want to say what your question is that I missed, and then we'll pick it up from there, and we'll take verbal questions.
Just George asking for the 10 that had expressed an interest in wave 2. Yep. Is there a process for them to automatically now go forward, or do we need to just engage as if we're starting from scratch?
No, you guys are on the list, as are a couple that were tepid about it and are a couple that have come in subsequently. So as far as I'm concerned, you are there if you want to be there. If somebody previously said you want to come but you're not happy with the way we're doing it, then I'm sorry, that's the best I've been able to come up with. But if you're with us and you want to do it and you want to use all the standard stuff and the resource we have been able to get to you for free, then please dive in and we'll move with you and you can be there.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? But I'll be delighted if you stick with us, Stuart. I'd also be glad if you considered both hospitals, because I know you've got 2. So I think I would give it a thought. George, are you trying to say something?
No, that was my comment. Your point. Sort of Stuart really sort of reiterated just that, yeah, we were signed up to wave 2. So yeah, we stay signed up, Clive. So let us know when you need input.
Yeah, no, I'll do that for you. You notice the model I presented for anybody who watched that. You'll notice the exemplar I gave you didn't work because it was a site that used about 14 million units of heat. Yet a well costs the same, whether it does 14 million units of heat or whether it does 25 and possibly more million units. So if your model says you fancy geothermal and you're above it, but you're a bit small, then you're going to need to consider just reheating in there in the mix. So that's, I think, part of the reason why what I've come up with, okay, it wasn't what we thought I was going to come up with. What I've come up with is better. So there we are. Anybody else want to raise a verbal question? I'm happy to take questions for as long as you like, but I'm aware that people have got lives to carry on with. Beverly, is it about time you said something, because you've been very active? Do you want to say something to us and ask a question?
Hello, yeah, that's fine. I just similar thing to Stuart and George. Really, we just I think we registered interest with wave 2, and we got sort of the general information back. We got HMDU funding, which we're just about to kick off into kind of like a pre-feasibility. And we've got a BGS report as well. So do we then register an interest for this framework in that if it does turn out to be viable, we're kind of ahead of the curve a little bit on it? And do we wait until we've had this study, and then, which kind of is what we're sort of thinking, and also can we knock out some of the stages if we've already done them? I think we're ahead as well.
Yeah, I think that'll help enormously. When it means we take you to market, the bidders are going to look at that and say you've got a lot of information, a lot of stuff there. A, more bidders will be interested, and B, I mean, like George has got a study, maybe not the same as you got, but he's got a study. The more stuff we've got that we can put out there, and the more they can see you engaged in it, the more they're going to work with you. Because it is risky for a bidder because effectively we're asking them to roll up costs one way or another into a scheme. And the more they can see you committed and you've done, A, the less they've got to do. And the B, the more they think, well, there's a prize here at the end of this. So Beverly, I would carry on the way you are, and I would, I would try and use it.
So we just keep talking to you, and then at some point there must be some governance based decision that we go for it. And
you need.
I've now learned within the NHS that can take sort of 3 to 6 months.
Well, what I would work on is I would work on that study and stuff. Work on the modelling. I think Becca's modelled your site, has she, Beverly?
Yes.
So possibly you want to be feeding back some of the stuff you learn back to there, to Becca. Becca might help you, or Becca's hoping to go sailing in the not too distant future when the weather improves. But we'll find somebody else to pick your model up and work with it. So
well, we do have ports in Dorset and Bournemouth and Poole. So if she does want to sail this way, that's fine. But no, that'd be great. If you could let me know an email, and we'll keep whoever it is in the loop. I'll just double check. And Paul's also listening in on this call. Who's our capital.
Okay, if you can get a sailing trip down to Poole, you've got hosts. You've got hosts.
We can find a sailing berth. I'm sure that'd be fine.
I'm around until March, sort of early March anyway. So if you want if you want to schedule in a time to sit and go through your model and ask any questions specific to your site, drop me a message and we can set something up.
I'm assuming you're in the circulation email. I think we've emailed before, so you should come up.
Yes, I think I'll be in your system.
Thanks very much.
Okay, I won't be offended if anybody leaves because I appreciate it kept you long, but I also won't be offended if you ask a question. Anybody else want to ask a question?
Well, the only one question I've got, Clyde, then is, so when I'm informing the organisation, I'll say procurement starts June, effectively, or the bidder engagement starts June.
Minicomp can go then.
Yeah.
But so sorry it's going to take a while, but the last thing is it's going through NHS England, it's going through the whole system, going through Cabinet Office, so it should be, the funding discussions are taking place. In fact, I've got a funding talk coming up. I don't think I've updated the event slide on NH Power, but I will do, and I'll send an invite out. The finance progressing, things are moving as, times are going to be hard. While Rachel can't find enough money to pay for people who need money, things are going to be hard, but we've got people working at it. So. Any other questions? Good. Okay, well, if nobody's got any questions, then there's no reason to keep you, and I'm going to let you go. So gone quickly as far as questions are concerned. I'll dig the chat out and I'll add anything to the questions that need to be there, and I'll post the video for you. We've got it, and we'll look to share the slides as well. But they'll be on the video, so you've got the word perfect if you want it. Okay, thanks guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Clyde.
I can turn the recording off now. Where's the recording? Transcribe, stop recording.